Hello folks, Bullet Brew here. It's time to start reviewing spoilers of Kaladesh. Um, it's been about 100 something cards revealed so far out of 264, and we're gonna briefly go for them, not just for limited but for constructed, for multiple formats. And then in certain parts of this review series I will also cover the good buying options, so cards that probably will rise in price, so that they're pretty good to invest into right now. There are lots of really big powerhouses and lots of cards that strike to me right now. All 5 cards that you see right now on this spoiler website are pretty bonkers, though they're mythics. Of course, there's been a lot of hype about Chandra, but when you think of it, like, she can defend herself. She basically gets you card advantage, even though if you can't cast that card this turn, it's burned. But it's alright. It also ramps you up, which is pretty huge. So, for example, if for some reason you get stuck on um, 4 mana, 4 lands, you can cast a 6 mana spell. For example, you can cast this crazy blue Gear Hulk, which is my favorite of the 5, I suppose. We don't know yet the red one. Yeah, but Chandra is overhyped, I feel like, even though she's pretty strong. And the emblem is really good win condition, that's for sure. But I don't know. I feel like she will cool down a little bit, no pun intended, in terms of price tag. But yeah, definitely a very cool card for modern, for standard, that's for sure. Nasa is also pretty strong, and even though I wasn't super impressed at first, but then it gets you a regrowth ability. It has this Cough the Hammer kind of ability, and then the emblem is also pretty sweet, and you can basically, without any help, you can just ultimate her on the second turn after you cast her, and then with Oath of Gideon you can pretty much ultimate her the same turn you cast her, and eat her up, and then you have pretty sick ultimate that will not directly win you the game, but you will bury your opponent in card advantage. And in a deck with Oath of Gideon and Nissa, you probably will have some decent finishers. The demon in the center is really sweet. You can compare it to Massacre Worm from, I believe, Skarsmirding. Was it from there? I think it was. So the same mana cost. Instead of 6/5, I believe, you have a 5/5, but this thing has flying, as it's a demon, so kind of naturally. Then you also have the second ability that triggers when other creatures dies. Massacre Worm was able to deal a lot of damage to an opponent, to a specific deck, which was full of small creatures, of course, or tokens. This one also gets you something, in this case energy counters. And yeah, it's hard to evaluate which ability is cooler, but against a deck that is not full of small creatures or tokens, actually the second ability of, the third, or like second ability of the demon is much more relevant. Basically, a lot of the time I think you will be able to use this ability and reanimate something sweet, not just from your graveyard, but from any graveyard, so which is pretty sick. Telorgic Summons is pretty sweet card, I think. So yeah, it doesn't get you value like the same turn, probably, but then it's hard to get rid of because it's an enchantment, and then you just spam a bunch of tokens that help you to survive and eventually win the game. And it also has the second ability, which is 6, so you can if you feel like vanilla XX tokens are not really cutting it, so you can always just basically eat it up, exile, and return all instant and sorceries cards from graveyard to hand. But yeah, like, you will have to have 6 or more artifacts, so this is not gonna come up very often. But the tokens are artifacts, so yeah, if your opponent is not really cleaning the board, then actually the card feeds itself. So even without the second ability, this card is quite awesome already. Angel of Invention. Okay, it's not a Baneslayer, it's not Allison really, but it's still pretty gross. Saying that it can do a lot of work. So you can either have it as a 4/3 flying vigilance lifelink for 5, which also boosts your other creatures. Or if you want more ground power, you can of course make 2 1/1s, which are automatically becoming 2/2 because of the last ability. So you would have basically 6 power for 5 mana, and then if you had anything else on board, you have like a huge boost. No wonder this card is a mythic, and I think it's great. So I will be talking about the money value and overvalued or overpriced and underpriced cards probably in a separate episode. So tune in for that. Also, I probably won't be able to cover everything that's on my mind. And this part with regard to the first 100 cards we know about. So tune in and subscribe for the next parts. Yeah, the Hulks are amazing. I like all 4 we know of right now because you see a gap here, so there's a red one coming up, I guess, in the missing cards. The blue one is my favorite one. Just compare it to the Goblin Dark Dwellers. Okay, 1 mana more, but it's blue, which is like kind of an upgrade. Okay, it's 1 more mana. It's instead of a 4/4 manas, you have 5/6, so it will be easier to block, but you get a better body. And then the flash is like so crazy, you can just use it as a draining well, kind of like a mystic snake sort of thing. So you got a big body that can block and possibly even eat something at instant speed, and then you get to cast like whatever crazy spell you get. A bit of a sad part there that it doesn't say instant or sorcery, but well, with blue decks you can probably kind of build around that. Dark Relics would be able to, let's say, flashback Ancestral Vision, which was awesome and sometimes observed even in Modern. Green one is great, black one is great. I believe what the white one does is sort of a reference back to creature that was in old Zendikar block, 4/4 for 5, and then I think also Vigilance, and then every your upkeep, I think you would choose a card type, and then each player will sacrifice a permanent of that card type, like let's say artifact or enchantment. I think you could have chosen Planeswalker on that one as well. And yeah, it was a powerful card, but hasn't seen much constructed play. I don't know if that one will. Probably, because it's kind of like Tragic Arrogance on a stick, because let's say you have an empty board, and let's say they have few things, few creatures in the ideal scenario, and one of them is pretty irrelevant. So yeah, you get a Tragic Arrogance on a stick, basically, which is, I think, quite powerful. Tragic Arrogance is a great card, and this way you get something on board if you have an empty board basically. So it's much better for control decks compared to mid-range ones. Then I believe it was released just recently. This 1/1/1/1 Dwarf Artificer. Basically, people are saying that it looks like it might be cool for Affinity in Modern, but it's not because it's not an artifact creature itself. But basically, what it does is that I believe if you have one artifact in play, this dude gets +2/+1 when it attacks, and if you have 3, this thing also gets first strike. And while it might not be an eternal card necessarily, outside of, I don't know, maybe like weird tempered steel deck in Modern, I'm really looking forward to it, to seeing it in the new inspired archetype with the vehicles and dwarves and so on. So the red-white legend, which we'll see later, is definitely making everything tick, and vehicles are powerful, and I like that. And it's a good one drop that fits the deck and has synergy with everything. So yeah, outcome might not be insane for standard, but yeah, it's gonna be very sweet for, I don't know, like Commander, same as for the Gonti next to it, Lord the Luxury. Very sweet card. Don't quite see the outcome in standard, but I could see Gonti in standard. Probably not so much for modern, but we'll see. Free toughness is kind of a soft spot, but yeah, for stand you have a good death touch buddy, which kind of loots you a card. So when it enters, you look to 4, and then you can exile one of them, and then as long as it's exiled, you can cast it. So the rest go to the bottom, which is kind of a balance thing. If they would go to, I don't know, exile or graveyard, then maybe there will be some more shenanigans with this card. But I like it. I like it. It's a for 4 mana, get a 2/3 Death Touch Body, plus you basically loot for a card. So yeah, I like it. It's probably not gonna be crazy for black-green Delirium because it doesn't put stuff into the bin, but we'll see. For less graveyard-centric decks that are in black and are mid-range or control-ish, I like it. Madcap Experiment, funny card, but probably not gonna see much constructed play outside of casual formats. Dubious Challenge is probably gonna be on the radar for many Commander players, I feel like. The problem with that is because each of you who are involved with this card, with this ability, are gonna get something substantial, most likely. Because if you're playing this card in your deck, you're not gonna fill your deck with a bunch of mediocre guys, and then they always get to choose if the opponent will see a great creature and okay creature. They're gonna choose a great one for themselves. But yeah, gonna be pretty sweet in Commander. And in that format, giving your opponent a big creature is not a huge tragedy, because how the games play out, because it's multiplayer, so everybody's trying to slow down each other and so on. So yeah, there it's much more safe. I haven't really seen any like really terrible cards in the set so far, and most of the comments are pretty decent for limited and very much playable. All those cycles that give you energy counters are very fine cards, so you would be quite okay picking them and playing them. So which probably gonna be contributing to a very tough like limited environment, meaning that most decks will be pretty solid, if not broken. So I'm just saying by this that limited with Kaladesh probably will be quite tough. So I don't expect it to be a very easy format to solve. So there would be lots of grinds and power struggles, I feel like. Trinketer, not a huge constructed playable card. I don't see a deck with it in standard or anything. Just a decent limited card. Um, that's how I see it so far. Artistry, well, I feel like control decks or mid-range decks will be happy with it in the sideboard, because imagine if the red-white vehicles deck will become an archetype, then you have basically 6 mana spell that probably just gives you a vehicle and a creature to crew it up, or let's say some powerful artifact plus some very powerful creature, not necessarily vehicle as an artifact. So yeah, I imagine that being a pretty interesting sideboard card in the new standard, especially if vehicles become a thing. If not, maybe this card won't be crazy for standard, but it's still a nice rare, and it's one of those cards that definitely will be interesting for Commander, I feel like, or for Highlander variants. This next card, the Black 4 mana enchantment, is very impressive. Probably my least favorite card in the set. I would just say probably the one I hate the most, because I don't understand like why it's a rare in the first place, and then I don't see it being played pretty much anywhere, because for standard this is just bad, and for Returnals there are just so much better cards. So what it does, it lets you draw like few extra cards, but not like every turn. As it stands, it's just a few turns, so it enters with 7 time counters. Each turn you take off 2, and then your hand size becomes the number of time counters on this thing. So basically, you draw an extra card the first upkeep, and then your hand size is 5. Limits to 5, and then to 3, and then to 1. So basically just draw 3 cards out of it for 4 mana, which is not the worst, but then your maximum hand size is 1, which is kinda retarded. So I feel like it's a too huge drawback. Just compare this to something like Demonic Pact. And Demonic Pact didn't see a huge amount of play, but was still a decent card. It was an interesting card. Didn't feel like it was just straight out bad. The Helion is something I'm pretty excited about. Think about it. Okay, it doesn't have trample, and it might disappear, but in a set that has a lot of energy counter makers, so it might not be that bad. Plus it helps to animate some of the vehicles, but I don't think it will be in a vehicle deck. It will be in some red deck win style of deck, because 3 mana 4/4 haste, it doesn't disappear the first turn, and then it will only disappear at the minimum at the end of the second turn, so you'll get 2 attacks with it at least, which is pretty good. So compare it to all those Health Spark elementals and Hell's Thunder elemental and so on from the shards, from the Alara block, those unearthed creatures. So yeah, it looks pretty strong to me. Hydra is okay, but I feel like we're so spoiled about 4 mana green creatures that this doesn't really strike as absurd to anybody. Okay, it can become a 5/4 at some point and gain hexproof for a turn, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, comparing to a bunch of creatures for the same cost in the previous sets, this is just not really ringing a bell. The rock is kind of weird, so I feel like it's much worse than the Windmate's rock, because it's so situational, it's kind of clunky, and then you can kill it with the new Incinerate, so it's vulnerable to 3 damage spells, for example. And then, yeah, okay, it's 1 mana less. You don't really have to attack with it to get value out of it, things like that. I mean, you don't have to attack with a creature prior to casting just to get value out of the card. But it's still kind of not super impressive. There is a feeling that it will be probably paired up in the same deck with the 5 mana Angel to make this kind of a crazy curve out. I don't know, hard to say. It's definitely an interesting card, but I'm not super impressed by it. But if I'll see it for a few times in action, I probably will change my opinion. I mean, there is a huge chance of that. Negotiation is okay. Lost Legacy is what we get instead of the Obliteration. So we still get this good sideboard card against Amoracles and such. So we still get to have some good answer in black to all those ridiculous bombs from certain decks, which is good. But it does have a drawback. Basically, if we hit something in their hand, they get to draw cards. So yeah, that's not amazing, but I guess a fine sacrifice. So to still have this kind of card in standard. Pia is not really Pia and Kiran, so just the Malver is definitely less powerful than both Chandra's parents combined together. It's an okay card, but it's not like Rebel Master. It's not like, as I said, Pia and Kiran. So yeah, it's even probably worse than the similar card from Eldritch Moon for the humans. It does give you a flyer, there is that. It's only once single red, so there is that. It's 3 mana. It does have a couple of relevant abilities, which are very good mana sinks. And there is a chance that we will see this card in the red-white vehicles deck. I really kind of hope so. It kind of fits there pretty well, because then both abilities will really help vehicles to push damage through. So far, I see cards just to benefit existing archetypes, and the only real new archetype I see right now is the red-white vehicles deck. So yeah. And because new decks are cool, so I would watch out for this card because it has potential. Well, okay, I'm lying a little bit. There is another new archetype that I feel like might become a thing, which is blue-white flicker mid-range with the rock, with the new angel, with flicker cards, with eerie interlude, and another card that I'll talk in this episode or later, we'll see. So the green rare next to it, so it lets you get back a bunch of cards for blood loads of mana. So this is basically a commander card, unless there will be some weird combo deck with infinite mana somewhere there, and that would have access to green mana and would actually want to start the chain again. So far I don't see that. This next angel for 6 is probably not gonna be great for the flicker deck. It's of course much worse than something like Restoration Angel. It's not common. It's a decent card, but most likely just limited. There are enough of ways to flicker stuff between Essence Flex, Interlude, and another card from this set free mana. So for 2 whites, instant flicker your guy and draw a card. Rejection is great. I feel like having this kind of cards is great not only for standard but for eternal formats. It could be a very cool sidebook cards, and I don't know, probably more in Legacy if there will be more Eldrazi's or that kind of stuff, or it's actually fine against Affinity as well, so there is that. And of course it's nice to have a good sideboard card like that for standard, where artifacts is actually a big thing. Underhanded designs, I like the cards, so it provides you with some lives cushion, because it's restrictive, so you need to play a lot of artifacts in your deck. But in addition to kind of being sort of a win condition in a way, because it's not only life gain but they lose life, it's also removal all in one, although you'll have to have like 2 or more artifacts. But yeah, it could be a cool win condition if there should be a crazy combo deck out of this set with this card. There definitely might be. Gorger is okay, but for that mana and for that kind of commitment, you probably can get better finishers. On the other hand, it synergizes with that same Helion, so it might become actually much better card, because there are a bunch of decent red beatdown creatures that generate energy counters. But this the problem is, no matter how many you get from any card, it only triggers once, even if you get it at the same time from one card a bunch of energy counters. But yeah, let's say you have this Scorcher on turn 4 or something, then turn 5 you play the Helion, this triggers, it becomes a 4/4 trample, then you have maybe 2 mana all left, then you play something else, get more counters, this becomes a 6/6, so yeah, I could see this card being actually quite playable. But right now it's not certain, but I think it has potential actually. The green rare is just okay. The problem is that if you choose to make tokens, then the second ability is really unimpressive, so you kind of have to pump it up with some anthems or some buffs or whatever. I don't know. But then again, maybe the flicker archetype I was talking about, maybe it will become banned, and then you will play this card, and then this plus the angel, you'll have a lot of creatures that will just spawn the board. But then again, if you're in the market for that kind of stuff, maybe you want just play the Absent combo deck with the Brute Monitor and Displacer and Cutthroat. But yeah, when you're looking at those Fabricate cards, think about the fact that Eldrazi Displacer is still in the format, even though using that ability is going to become more difficult. But then again, that Brute Monitor combo deck, you don't really need to have the Carless, Carless mana producing lands in order to go off like with the combo. So that's why I feel like that combo deck might actually come back, at least for a little while, in the next standard season after rotation. Then we see a lot of decent limited cards. Very good pick, I suppose, the Responder, probably to nobody's surprise. 3 mana to 3 Flying Vigilance, Lifelink, 1 color, okay, double white but manageable. 2 mana 2/1s in blue it's acceptable sometimes as a filler if you really need 2 drops. We've been through that kind of stuff with many sets and limited environments. Really like Morbid Curiosity actually. So okay, you have to sacrifice a creature and artifacts, but you get to draw a bunch of cards from it. So if there will be a decent vehicle deck with black, then this is a pretty crazy card, because you get to draw a bunch of cards, because all those vehicles cost quite a bit. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. And then there's some pretty cool non-creature artifacts in the set as well that do cool things. And of course in Eternal formats, and then in Commander, you can it's just a crazy card. I feel like I love it. I love it. It doesn't scream to you, but it just reads out that, nah, like for free money you can draw a bunch of cards and maybe even trigger a few sweet things. Not very excited with the Stalker, actually. Um, okay, just 4 mana, but all the abilities require red, so there is that. And then there's not even such a thing as a Dragon Stumpy in Legacy, so I don't know what you're gonna do with it. Maybe a few years ago this card will be on borderline playable, but right now not so much. There are much better alternatives. On the other hand, it might be a decent mana sink for some Red the Queens kind of deck. Just like play it as a one-off just for the late game. You would have a hasty dragon that you can pump up and so on. So we'll see, we'll see. Not a very impressive card, but borderline playable still, I guess. Real like the Architect. A lot of people might not see it, and yeah, you will have to play a lot of lands to trigger it and get value out of it consistently. On the other hand, this set is flooded with cards and effects that make energy counters, so you shouldn't really think about these cards in terms of just how many land drops you feel like you will make in one game. It's not a broken card, but I like it. It's sweet. If on average per game you'll get a 166 out of it, it actually makes it a pretty decent card. Of course, on the other hand, there has been that Dragon Master Outcast that spawned 5/5 dragons every turn and costs just a 1 mana and required you just to have a bunch of lands in play at once and not play additional land drops that much. So there is that. So this is why probably a lot of people are not super excited about this card, but I think it's standard playable. Yeah, of course in this set you will have to have a bunch of answers, artifacts, and enchantments, so this is why we have this Fragmentize. Then the Flicker deck maybe will play this Ever Trade Winds, the 3 mana instant, return their guy and your own guy, so maybe you will have to play like something like this. And then there's this white spell which does a similar thing, but it cycles. A Momentary Blink was a busted card, so we're never gonna see anything like it. I feel like Restoration Angel was crazy, Flicker Wisp was crazy, so don't feel like we're gonna see the likes of that again, unless they would deliberately make a very powerful set where the standard environment will be very powerful and the power level will be pretty crazy, but I don't feel like we're gonna see such crazy sets in the future. But in terms of creatures, at least, the power level has been rising and rising over years. So this white spell, basically 2 in a white, instant flicker guy, draw a card. I feel like if there's gonna be a flicker archetype, you will probably have to play this white card and probably even the Trade Winds. Extraction, probably just a limited card, but very decent at that. Sabotage is unimpressive, so probably just a limited card. It's in instant, but it costs 4, you have to sacrifice an artifact, and it's only 3 damage to everything, so yeah, not amazing. Not really that amazing. Mm, the Lontas Cub actually might be constructed playable. It's similar in the power level to that new Wild Mongrel from Eldritch Moon, 2 mana 2/2, and then it has reach and discard the card that pumps for +1, +1/+1. This is kind of similar. It doesn't have any form of evasion, so that kind of stinks. I wish it would have something like it can't be blocked by more than one creature or something, because that will fill the bill pretty nicely and make it a very nice solid card. It's still okay on its own, but you will have to connect it the first time to make it at least having a small chance to connect the next time and so forth. But it's decent. It just starts there and it grows, so it's alright. Daredevil, probably just a limited card, but quite decent at that. Lightning, just okay for limited. But maybe you will be in the market for something like that if there will be a deck that will actually focus a lot on producing and using the energy counters. There's a good chance of that. So not a crazy card, definitely very good for limited, possibly constructed playable. Depends on whether there will be pieces for a deck that will actually need this, and at the very least it's like Oath of Chandra, things like that. So if you really need a bunch of cheap removals and you're in the red, then you'll have this option. Stomper is just a balance spell off and things like that. That's why it's just uncommon. It sucks that it costs 5 mana, but it's 5/4 instead of 4/4, and it has trample and you gain 1 more life. Things like that. So probably not gonna make it the cut to standard, but a very sick card for limited, no doubt there. Really nice to have a 1 mana for Camel for standard. Fortress Find could be a pretty sick card for standard. I feel like there was some similar in old Zendikar. So for 2 mana at sorcery speed you could return a creature and the land. So it was played sometimes in vampires so that you can get back a relevant vampire and get back a fetch land from your graveyard to hand in order to bring back a Bloodghast. So that was a thing. Plus the fetches were there to synergize with the Vampire Nocturnus just to make sure that it will give you the pumps to your team, and also help to kind of clean the deck out of lands on the top deck. Fanatic, if there will be a playable vehicle deck in the standard, this card probably will be in there. It has haste, so it can crew up something right on the spot, and then it gives the haste to a vehicle. So yeah, really like that. Really like that card. The Judge has a potential to be pretty broken. Luckily, there are not super many ways in this set to put 1/1 counters on creatures, because you have Fabricate, but it's not an absurd amount, and outside of that you don't really have other means to do that much, outside of maybe the Green Hulk, which distributes 4 counters on creatures. So outside of that, not many ways. And if you draw a couple of cards off of this judge, it's actually pretty sick. Of course, it will be absurd in Tarkir, where you had all those bolster things and other ways to put counters on creatures in the Abzan. It even has the throwback, like because it's a rider on a rhino, and the people look a little bit alike from Abzan. Maybe there's some storyline flick there for Kaladesh. Maybe these are like immigrants from, I don't know, from Turkey or something like that, or there was some connection in terms of like planes traveling. I don't know. That's a very solid limited common. Basically, for 3 mana with a single color, man, you either get a 2/2 and a 1/1, or you have a 3 mana 3/3 at common, which is like very, very decent for limited. For limited environment, most likely the life fast is actually gonna be pretty high peak, I feel like, because it draws you cards in black and then gives you those energy counters that are used everywhere. So yeah, a bit sad about the Furious Reprisal. If it will be instant, it will be probably first pickable, but as a sorcery, it's eh. It helps to nuke planeswalkers, which is nice, and 2/1s are often nice, but if it will be at least, I don't know, 3 mana and let's say double red, then it might actually be a constructed playable, but at 4, especially at sorcery speed, it's just a decent limited card, that's it. Like the palm for 2 mana for 4 trample. Unfortunately sorcery, but oh well. Because of trample, we can forgive that, I guess, for limited. Pioneer is just the simple and okay limited card. Free to flyer for 4 that's uncommon with single whites, or just a 2/1 flyer and a 1/1. It's okay. Very serviceable card. Diane is probably one of the good removals from the set. I feel like it at least gives the creature -2/2, and then you get to use those extra energy counters from somewhere else. That's fine. I believe that if there will be a playable vehicles deck in standard, you probably aren't gonna play the start your engines. Maybe it's a 1 copy, and I doubt even that. It's a sorcerer for 4 mana just to animate your vehicles. So, okay, it pumps them as well, but I don't know, very conditional. You would much rather probably just play some creatures that you can attack and block with, and also crew up the cars. I really like the this elf as well. So 3/2 for free, and then for 3 mana, creature you control can't be blocked by small creatures. Basically, that's what it says. So yeah, quite okay. Probably not constructed playable, but very sweet one for limited. Vanilla 5/2s for 4, and then solid removal, but most likely just for limited, because 3 mana, even though it's an instant, but it's only to creature. So yeah, it's not something like a roast, for example. It's not consistent enough. And I believe even if you're like very hardcore artifact standard deck, mostly in red, so you can still probably have better alternatives. Or just have a different strategy with your deck. Okay, I'm gonna talk about everything else here and the new cards in the next part, because this one has already been like pretty long, and I'm gonna in a separate episode talk about the prices. So stay tuned, folks. Don't forget to subscribe or follow on Twitter and Facebook to know when things come up, and so on. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Until the next sale, goodbye.